Okay, a thought from last week, Parshat Emor. In Parshat Emor, we have all the Chagim. We have Shabbos, and then Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur. We have Pesach, Shavuot, Sukkot, all the Chagim. Eile Modei Hashem Mikroi Kodesh Atikru Osam B'Moado. In the middle of the Chagim, there's a pasuk. Ubekutrechem miskatzir artzachem. When you harvest your land, don't cut all the land. Leave a corner for the poor person. When you're collecting the tzavua, the stalks, if some stalks fall out, leave them on the ground. Now, it's very nice. It tells you about giving tzedakah to poor people when you harvest your land. But it has nothing to do with the chagim. It has nothing to do with the holidays. We're talking about the holidays. So I saw one of the Meforshim give a very nice answer. Everybody, a lot of people understand, Shabbat, that's very important. Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, yes, very important. Even not very religious Jews, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, they keep. Pesach, they have a Seder, Shavuot, Sukkot. The Torah is teaching you that doing kindness, chesed, is as important to a Jew like keeping Shabbat, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur. That it's an important message that nobody, a Jew, has to keep Shabbat. There's no compromise. Doing chesed, there is no compromise. Same thing, no compromise. Okay, let's go a little bit further. Parshas Bahar, coming up this week. So it says as follows, Vaydaber Hashem el Moshe, Bahar Sinai. Hashem spoke to Moshe on Har Sinai. Now the truth is, the entire Torah was given at Har Sinai. For the last year, they've been at Har Sinai. So all of a sudden this week, the Torah tells us they're at Har Sinai. They've been there since Parshas Yisro, when they got the Torah. So the Mishkan was built there, they've been camped there for a year. All of a sudden the Torah tells us for Har Sinai. And then what halacha does it tell us? Shemitah. So the famous Rashi, the Meforshim, they all say, Ma inyan Shemitah etzel Har Sinai. What is the connection between Shemitah, good evening, and Har Sinai? So the Meforshim answer that just like the laws of Shemitah were said in great detail at Har Sinai, all the halachot were said in great detail at Har Sinai. That means the written Torah is very short compared to the Gemara, compared to the Talmud. At Har Sinai, they learned not only the written Torah, but they learned all the details of all the mitzvahs. That's what it says. Then they bring down that why do they choose Shemitah as the example? Very interesting answer. If you wanted to write the Torah, and you were a faker, you weren't real, you would never make the promise the Torah makes. The Torah says every 7 years don't plant the fields, right? So then the person says, and what are we going to eat? If we don't plant the fields in the 7th year, we'll have no food for the 7th year, for the 8th year, what are we going to eat? So the Torah says, don't worry. In the year 6, Hashem is going to send extra food of bracha. You'll make in year 6 enough for year 6, 7, and 8, 3 years. Now, that's a big promise. That's a big promise to make. Because if it doesn't come true, then you'll say, no Torah, there's no God. End of story. So for the Torah to make that promise is unusual. It's unusual. Imagine someone said to you, you're a professor in university, and every 7 years they give you a year off, which is called the sabbatical, which is very nice. But we're not going to pay you. But I'm telling you, in year 6, you're going to win the lottery, and you're going to win enough money to cover your salary for year 6, 7, and 8. So buy a lottery ticket, you're going to win $300,000. Every person. That's a promise that unless you're Hashem, you can't keep. So the mitzvah they choose which is Shemitah at Har Sinai, becomes a very important mitzvah. Very, very important. Because it's there to prove that the Torah is emes. So it's a very unusual mitzvah. Now, there's a Rashi. The Rashi says, and I want to read you the Rashi, the end of Bahar, because everybody questions all the different topics that are in this week's Parsha, and the connection between Bahar and Bechukosai. Normally we read them together. This year we don't, but normally we read them together. So Rashi says as follows. Ava Parshios Halolu, these Parshios, these sections, Nemru ala Seder, were set in order. That means it wasn't just different topics put together. There's a logic behind it. B'tchila hiser al hashviz. The Torah tells you, keep Shemitah. What happens if a person doesn't keep Shemitah? The person says in the year 7, not work for a whole year? Impossible. I'm going to work. I can't go a whole year without working. V'im chomad mamon, v'nechshar al hashviz. If he desires money, and therefore we suspect he's going to work on Shviz, on Shemitah, so far, limkar tov, he'll sell all his objects, his car. He'll have to sell things to pay for his bills. So instead of making money, he's losing money. And therefore it says in the Parsha, and if a person has to sell things, then it says, if he doesn't do teshuvah, he'll sell his field. So then the Torah says, you're working your field, guess what? No field. You won't be able to pay the mortgage on the field. You don't do teshuvah, you sell your house. Now you lost your house also. Now you're renting, they have to move. Right. You don't do teshuvah, you'll have to borrow money. And you're going to borrow money from people who are going to charge you interest. And it gets worse and worse and worse. And then comes all the curses in the Tochacha. So the Rashi is trying to tell you that Parshas Bahar, Parshas Bechukosai, there's an order, there's a sequence, there's an order which is trying to teach you all the different things that will happen if you don't keep the Shemitah. And then comes the final thing. What's the final thing? It says in the Chumash, Oz tirtze ha'oretz es shapsoseho. That means if you don't keep the Shemitah, Hashem says, you know what? I'm going to throw you off the land. I'm going to send you into Galut. Now there are going to be no Jews in Israel, and the land will rest. Okay? Which leads to a very difficult question, because they say the 70 years of Galut to Bavel was because they didn't keep Shemitah. 70 Shemitahs not to keep every 7 years is 490 years. It means that almost during the entire Beit HaMikdash they didn't keep the Shemitah.
The first Beit HaMikdash didn't keep the Shemitah?
It means, and it's wild. Kings were David HaMelech, Shlomo, Asa, Yehoshaphat.
Never they keep Shemitah, never?
That's what it seems like. That's what the Gemara says.
Wow.
So Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky says something which is fascinating. He says, it can't be. You're telling me that they didn't keep Shemitah for close to 500 years. Can't be. They were very religious Jews.
Maybe somebody did not keep.
So maybe some of them didn't keep, maybe
most
some
of them.
Maybe most did. He has a different answer. Listen to his answer. It's a fascinating answer. Let me give you an example. Friday, you come home, Shabbat begins at 6 o'clock. Okay, you're tired. So you don't go to shul, you daven arvit, you make kiddush, you have a quick meal, 6:30 you're finished, and you go to sleep. And you sleep from 6:30 until 9 o'clock the next day.
Okay.
14 hours.
This mean he skipped Shabbat, no?
1 second.
There's nothing.
He's sleeping. Gets up Shabbos morning,
Uh-huh.
daven shacharit fast, musaf, has lunch. By 11 o'clock he's back in bed until 6 o'clock. He sleeps another 8 hours.
Happens with my father.
Oversleep.
He's
Oversleep.
He's tired. Slept
Tired.
the whole Shabbat, except he ate twice and then he davened a
Happens
little
with me
bit.
too.
Okay.
Because
So Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky says, did this person keep Shabbat?
big question.
Yes.
You would say yes.
I think.
He says no. He says he was not Mechalel Shabbat. He didn't violate Shabbat. He was sleeping.
Uh-huh.
Okay? But did he keep Shabbat? No. He says in order to keep Shabbat, you have to learn Torah.
Yeah.
That's what he says. You have to learn Torah.
Then,
The whole purpose of Shabbat, one day a week, is to be off from work and you consider learn Torah. In Israel, the olden days, they used to finish the Torah every 3 years. So he says, 3 years, they finished the Torah Simchat Torah. Another 3 years, they finished the Torah Simchat Torah. Then came year number 7, Shemitah. They read the entire Torah in 1 year like we do today.
oh,
He says, you know what the purpose of Shemitah was? Don't work the field. Most people were farmers. So what are you going to do all day? You go, they had kollels, and all the farmers went, and every 7 years they would review all the mitzvahs of the Torah. So Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky says, you know what it means they didn't keep the Shemitah? They didn't plant the ground. They were off. So they went on vacation. They went to Italy, they went to Greece, they went to England.
okay.
What they didn't go to was the base medrash. They didn't learn any Torah.
Oh, that's
So he says, if you take a whole year, Hashem says, don't plant the fields. Hashem gives you food. Everything Hashem gives you. And then in return, instead of learning Torah, you don't learn any Torah. That's called not keeping Shemitah, he says. It's a very, very fascinating answer.
very interesting.
He says, in order to keep Shemitah, you have to learn Torah. You have to show that Shemitah is important. You have to do something to grow. And that's what they did. At the end of the Shemitah year, the king came and they read the entire book of Devarim, or Shana Rabbah, on Sukkot. It was a whole big thing. You know, it was all about learning. So when you're off and you have food and you're not learning, you're not keeping.
Rabbi, you're just talking about some people, some amount of people.
Right. It seems that a lot of people did not learn Torah during the Shemitah year.
I see.
That's the problem. And that's why in the second Beis HaMikdash, the first Beis HaMikdash, they had so many problems because they didn't learn enough Torah. They didn't have that Torah. Baruch Hashem, in the second Beis HaMikdash, they learned more Torah. They had yeshivas. It was a different style. Rav Moshe Feinstein says, the Torah says, and you'll come and you'll ask, what am I going to eat in the 7th year? So Hashem says, I'm going to send my bracha. So they asked the question, when Moshe Feinstein asked the question, he says, what kind of a person asks, what am I going to eat in the 7th year? Is that a question a religious person asks or a not religious person asks?
Non-religious.
So you would think it's a not religious person. When Moshe says, no, it's a religious person asked it. You know what his question is? He goes to his rabbi and he says, Rabbi, I'm a farmer. I'm not very smart. I'm not a big Talmud Chacham. I'm not a big tzaddik. So how am I going to survive Shemitah? That means Hashem will send the bracha to those who are big Talmidei Chachamim. I understand that. But not to me. I'm a simple person. So Hashem says, you're keeping Shemitah? Yes. Even if you don't know any Torah, you're keeping Shemitah? Yes, I'll send you my bracha. So it's not that you don't have emunah. You have faith. You believe in God. You're a good person. You just don't think you have enough zchuyot in order to get Hashem's bracha. Therefore, when Moshe Feinstein says, Hashem says, I'm going to send my bracha to you anyway. Why? Because you're following the Torah. Even if you're not a big Talmud Chacham, but if you follow the Torah, you're going to get my bracha. But of course, the purpose of Shemitah, very interesting. Every 7 years, all the fields were empty, all the farmers were in yeshiva, spending an entire year learning from Bereshit till V'zot HaBracha. That's a very interesting education system. You know? We finish Shas every 7 years, right? We have a cycle, Daf Yomi. So they had 1 year, but maybe that 1 year they finished entire Shas, entire Rambam. They learned a lot of things. That was the purpose. Most people, I guess, didn't take advantage of it, and that's why the Torah says it's as if they didn't keep the Shemitah. Not from Yaakov Kamenetsky. But the truth is, a lot of people did keep it. And that's very, very important. There is the concept of onoah. In this week we learned. Onoah means not taking advantage. If I buy something for $10 and I try to sell it to you for $20, which means I'm charging a markup of 100%, that's ona'ah. That means I'm taking advantage of you. It's an interesting halacha because you have to ask yourself, how much does it really cost for shmur matzah and they sell it for $30 a pound, or a lulav and an esrog? You're allowed to charge a person the market price, you're allowed to charge a person for your time, effort, and energy, but the question whether a person, the bakery, should make a whole year's salary for 1 week of Pesach. And that's what they do. Stores sell sheitalach, women's hair. It costs them $100. They sell it for $2,000. So the markups are 1,000%. It's very, very expensive. Should it be so expensive to do a mitzvah? I mean, that's the big question that comes up. So there's something called ona'ah, taking advantage of someone monetarily. There's also called ona'as devarim, abusing someone with your words. The Torah forbids it. The Torah forbids calling people names and making fun of them and screaming at them and yelling at them, or even saying things that you don't mean to keep. Like, I'll meet you tomorrow 9 o'clock at the bus stop, and you don't show up till 10 o'clock. So for a whole hour I was waiting there. That's ona'as devarim. You wasted an hour of my time. An hour of my time is precious.
You steal time from...
Right. When you make promises and you say you're going to do things and you don't keep it, you don't do it, those are called ona'as devarim. So the Torah goes through that as well. It's interesting. It talks about, there's a pasuk in Tehillim, Hashem talks about his mighty soldiers, like his mighty people. And the Gemara says, you know who's mighty? Two groups of people. At Har Sinai, when they said Na'aseh v'nishma, they accepted the Torah, that was the strength of angels. And the second one is keeping Shemitah. Why? Because most mitzvahs you can do in a minute, 5 minutes. You daven, takes you 2 hours. Okay, I got that. You put on tefillin, takes you half an hour. It's a mitzvah you do. You do Birkat HaMazon, takes you 5 minutes. But Shemitah is a mitzvah that lasts for a whole year. In order to do a mitzvah that lasts for a whole year, it takes a lot of strength. It's referred to as Gibore. Hashem refers to them as my strong, my mighty people. So it's something that I found very interesting. He brings down a famous story here. It's an old story, it's a famous story. You talk about ona'as devarim, misusing words and making promises you don't keep. He says sometimes a person creates a lie, lives the lie, and the lie becomes the new truth. He says, gives you an example. There was a milkman in the city of Telz that used to water down the milk. So what would normally be a carton of milk, he was able to get 2, 3, 4 cartons. So he made a lot of money, right? Let's say a carton of milk normally costs $5. From 1 carton, he added water, he made 3 cartons, he made $15. Okay. Finally, he felt bad that he was doing that. So he went to the Rabbi of Telz and he told him what he was doing. So the Rabbi of Telz said to him, you want to do teshuvah? He says, yes. So he says, the first thing you got to do is stop watering down the milk. You got to stop. Then maybe you'll make a donation, tzedakah, this way the community benefits, and everybody will get a little bit back of their money from the benefit. Okay. Comes back a week later, he says, Rabbi, I'm in trouble. He says, what's wrong? He says, no one's buying my milk. Why not? They all say it doesn't taste the same. Because they got used to the watered down milk. So now the milk tastes too rich, something's wrong. They don't like the milk.
Wow.
So he says, can I go back to watering down the milk? That means he did it to cheat the community. But now they got used to it. So the lie becomes the new truth.
Wow.
It's a problem.
Probably.
It's a problem. Then the story goes that a woman came to the rabbi and says, some milk fell into my chicken soup. Is it kosher? I don't think there's 60-1, Rabbi. The rabbi says, no, it's okay, it's kosher. So, of course, they all asked, how could it be kosher? It's not 60-1. But the rabbi says, it is 60-1 because there's milk, it has water in it. So, it's not real milk, it's diluted milk. So, there's only a little bit of real milk, the rest is water, plus the soup is 60-1. But in order for the rabbi to tell them that, he had to tell the secret of the milkman. So he's stuck. Here they're accusing the rabbi, you don't know halacha, you're not ma'aretz, you're telling people that they can drink the soup, but they're not allowed to. And the answer is, well, it's a little different because of what happened. So, there are all these different stories that come up and happens, but there's this concept of onas devorim.
But it's not good, milk and chicken.
No, it's not. Don't do it. But it's just interesting how things, the truths, we create our own lives. I'll give you another example. Difficult. I'm working on, for Shavuot night, I'm speaking, of course, like I do every year, whether I'll be able to walk there or not. My walking has gotten very bad, but, I'm going to try to make it. I'll give you an example. We say, if I ask you, do you believe in Hashem? Do you believe in God?
Yes.
He answers me yes.
You're honest.
Is the question a fair question?
Yes.
Okay. And the Hebrew word for belief in Hashem, what is that called? What's the Hebrew word for belief? Emunah.
Emunah.
Right? Do you believe in Hashem? Yes.
Emunah
Okay.
system.
Let me tell you why the question is a trap. Okay, it's a trap. If I ask you, do you believe this is a chair? What would you answer?
Of course.
I know it's a chair.
He doesn't believe it's a chair.
Physical.
He says, I know it's a chair.
Believe it's only to the theory. If you have a
So Hashem is only a theory.
no, Hashem is a belief system.
No. That means if I ask you, do you believe in Hashem? The right answer should be no. I don't believe in Hashem. I know there's Hashem, like I know this is a chair.
Wow.
Eventually, we don't have that. We don't have that mentality.
But we call it emunas Hashem, emunah b'Hashem, belief in Hashem, and therefore we run the risk where someone can turn and say, it's so nice you believe, but I don't believe. And don't blame me for not believing if it's all about belief. It's not about knowledge. Okay? I don't believe this is a table. I know this is a table. I know this is a chair.
Because the chair and the table is tangible. Tangible is something that you know because you can touch it, you can feel it.
So you're saying, since I can't prove the existence of God scientifically,
yes.
therefore I only believe.
Believe because the Torah is telling us Hashem is this, Hashem is that. We believe it because
So
of the Torah.
the trap, it's a double trap. The word emunah does not mean to believe in Hashem. So what does the word emunah mean? And that you would have to come here Shavuot night to figure out.
When? Which night?
Shavuot night.
Wow.
All night.
But I'll talk about it in the weeks to come a little bit. But it's an interesting trap.
And it's going to be in Kew Gardens.
Yeah, actually it's going to be in Kew Garden Hills and Briarwood, I'm speaking.
It's a long walk.
It's a long walk for me also. It's like an hour there, then around, and then an hour back. It's like I leave the house at 10:30. I don't get back till 5 o'clock in the morning. Then I go daven. I'm on my feet for 6 hours, 7 hours. But it's an interesting trap. One of the cornerstones of Judaism is emunah b'Hashem. I believe. Ani ma'amin be'emunah shalema. I believe in Hashem.
Okay.
But the word emunah does not mean to believe. The word emunah touches on, I know there's Hashem.
Oh.
Now the question is, how do I know?
Mm-hmm.
This I know. His point is an excellent point. How do I know? So that I'm going to show you how we know there's Hashem versus all the other religions. What's the difference? How do we know? And I'm going to get into that, and I'm going to show, and in weeks to come, I'm still working on it, still on my computer, and still researching some of the topics. But you understand that emunah,
Yeah,
it
because-
means I know. Now the question is, how do I know?
It's the same, you just remind me of something. I've been studying bachelor's in psychology. I studied, and professor was talking about tangible things in psychology, which is also very hard to understand, but there are theories that people believe that
Correct.
are true, but theory can never be proven.
Correct.
Because even I had a psychology teacher says that right now we know that 2 times 2 is 4. In 1,000 years from now, it might be a theory that is 4. It might be something else, and somebody will prove something else about it. You know?
And that's important, because you would never go to a crowd of people and say, I will prove the existence of God. It's a dangerous assumption. Yet we don't want to believe in Hashem. We want to be able to say, I know Hashem exists. And the question is, well, how do you know? And you only know things from knowledge. And what pieces of the puzzle do you need to conclude, I know there is Hashem, and that's what Shavuos is all about, and accepting the Torah and Har Sinai, that's what all these things are about. It leads to the belief in the knowledge that Hashem exists. Now, just as an example, when Hashem gave the Torah at Har Sinai, and he spoke to the Jewish people, how many people heard him?
4.
3
around
million.
4. I heard the 4.
No, 3 million people. Oh, everybody heard him,
More than 3.
right? 3 people. 3 million
3
people.
million, yeah.
When Hashem spoke to Muhammad, when Muhammad said, God spoke to me, how many people heard him?
Just one.
Oh, only one.
Yes.
And when the Mormons, John Smith said, God spoke to me, how many people heard him? Only one. And when Yoshka said, God spoke to me, how many people heard him? Only one.
The water spoke to him.
All the religions, all other religions, when someone says, hey, next time God speaks to you, can I listen? No, it's private.
Ah.
The only difference was Judaism. When God spoke to them, 3 million people heard him.
Wow.
That's the difference. It's a major difference.
So
There's-
with that generation, those people, they may add a level of they know because they heard.
But we
But we are going to be at the level where we believe.
no. Because if I tell you a story and you go around and tell a whole bunch of people the story, will the story at the end be the same as the story I told you?
No.
No. But the Rambam found the Torah from Ezra that was written 1,000 years earlier and compared it to our Torah, and guess what? It matched
Exactly.
exactly. And if you go to Israel and you look at the Dead Sea Scrolls, and there's snippets from all of Tanakh, and you pull out a Navi, and you compare what was written 3,000 years ago in Yeshayahu to what we have, does it match? Exactly. Do you know that between an Ashkenazi and Sephardi Sefer Torah, every word is exactly the same except one word is spelled differently? There's one word that Ashkenazim spelled, now they changed it, with an aleph at the end, and Sephardi spelled with a hey,
Where?
in Kisei Tzei.
Where?
B'tzuei daka, the word dalachof aleph, the article spells it with a hey already, but the older Chumash spell it with an aleph. So imagine,
Which part of Tanakh?
it's in the Chumash, it's in the end of, it's in Parshas Kisei Tzei.
Much.
So that's still kosher? I mean,
Well, it's just Ashkenazi and Sephardi. So, but they're, the Chachamim said, imagine, Ashkenazi and Sephardi were separated by thousands of miles and evolved differently. And when they finally came together, oh, you have a Sefer Torah, we have a Sefer Torah. Let's compare. Exactly the same.
just one word is different.
One word had one letter that didn't change the meaning.
Oh, it still has the same.
Same meaning.
And reads the same? Or?
Reads the same. Now that's
The
fascinating.
pronunciation, not the same?
It's pronounced the exact same way.
Huh?
That's fascinating.
But hey and olive sounds too different.
Right, but it's in the end of the word, it doesn't make a difference.
No.
It's fascinating. So, at the Rambam, when he found Ezra Sofer's Sefer Torah, he made a big simcha, he made a big party, because it was exactly the same. That's where knowledge. So when a Jew says, I know the existence of Hashem, and someone says, well, how do you know? He says, because it was something that was said to 3 million people. It wasn't private. There's an old story that 2 brothers, their father died, was a Hasidic rabbi. And the question was, who's going to take over for the son, the father? The oldest brother or this brother? So this brother one morning comes to his older brother and says, last night Dad came to me in a dream and he told me I should take over. Of course, Hasidic dynasties have real estate that's worth millions upon millions of dollars. So he tells his older brother, Dad came to me in a dream, he told me I should take over. You know what the older brother said? If Dad wanted you to take over, he should have come to me in the dream and tell me. Got it?
Giving up easy, yeah?
Got it? If Yoshka comes and says, there's a new religion called Christianity, trust me, I would have said, you know what? If Hashem wanted you to be the new leader, Hashem should have come to me and told me, follow that guy.
Which never happened.
Which never happened. But when Hashem spoke to Moshe, the Nevuah, all the Nevi'im heard it. Aaron heard it, Eldad, Medad, they all heard it. And when Hashem spoke to Moshe at Har Sinai, it says everybody heard it. And it says, "Vayaminu b'Hashem u'b'Moshe avdo." And it says, "U'b'chol yaminu le'olam," they'll believe in you forever. So, belief that is based in knowledge is not belief. It's, I know. I don't believe this is a chair. I know this is a chair. It's based in knowledge. It's a different thing. Shavuos is all about gaining knowledge. Because when you have knowledge, so emunah does not mean belief. It doesn't mean I have faith that there is a God. Rather, it's faithfulness. I am faithful to Hashem because I know He exists. When I have emunah b'Hashem, it means I have the trust of the existence of Hashem, and I'm loyal to Hashem. So it's a totally different concept. I'm still working on some of these. I still have to develop it more and add pages to it. Okay, listen to this. Yom Kippur. A person lives through Yom Kippur, Hashem forgives all their averos. But that's only averos between you and Hashem. What about averos between people? No. The only way you get forgiveness, if you go to your friend and say, I'm sorry, please forgive me. The only difference is if you keep Shemitah. There's a pirush that says that if you keep the Shemitah year, and you keep it completely, Hashem says, I will even forgive the averot between you and your friends, even if your friend said no. That's how powerful Shemitah was. That Hashem forgave the Jewish people, even for averos between the two of them, between people. There is a story, very interesting story, with the Chassam Sofer. Listen to this story. It's a very shocking story. He brings it down in the Otzer Palos HaTorah. He says there was a Rasha, an evil person who died in the community, and when the body was brought to the Chevra Kadisha, to the funeral, to the society, one of the people in the funeral society says, Baruch Hashem that this guy died. Finally, this evil guy is dead. Great. It's a good day. The fact that this guy is dead is a good day. And one of the younger members of the burial society went over to the dead body and flicked his nose, slapped him across his face. He says, an evil guy dead, good. That night, this guy that did the flicking has a dream, and this dead man comes to him in a dream and says, you embarrassed me in public. And even though I was dead, you embarrassed me. And I want you to come to a din Torah to answer for your crime. Now, you understand, if he's in heaven and he wants him to come for a din Torah, you know what that means, don't you? You don't want to go to that din Torah, because usually it's a one-way trip. You can't come back from such a court case. So he dismissed it, it's a dream, dreams don't mean anything. The next night he had the same dream, the same night. Finally he came to the Marsha. And the Marsha says, tonight you're going to sleep in my house. And when he comes to you, I want to speak to him. Tell him that the head of the Bet Din is here. You don't have to go upstairs. The head of the Bet Din is here. So he comes to him in the dream. The guy says, we're in the Marsha's house. The head of the Bet Din is here. So he says, okay, I'll speak to him. So he says, this guy embarrassed me and I want him to pay the consequences for embarrassing me. He says, I don't understand. You were such a bad person. How did he embarrass you? He says, I am in Olam Haba. He says, I'm already in the world to come. He says, how could you be in the world to come? You didn't do anything. You didn't do Torah, mitzvahs, you didn't do anything. He says, when I was a young kid, there was a bunch of yeshiva boys swimming by the beach, maybe. And one of them was drowning. And I saved that one. I saved that one yeshiva boy. And that yeshiva boy became a big Rosh Yeshiva and learned Torah every day. So in Shamayim, I got the reward for all the Torah he learned because I saved his life. So after 120 years, when I came upstairs, you know what? I had thousands and thousands of mitzvahs. All because I saved this guy's life. And then you punched me in the nose? You embarrassed me.
Wow.
You have to pay the price. So the Marsha said to him, it's the Yetzer Hara playing a trick on you. I know you felt embarrassed, but it's the Yetzer Hara. He wants you to kill this yeshiva boy so it should neutralize the yeshiva boy who you saved. And that will force you to go to Gehenna. He says, forgive this yeshiva boy, he didn't know better. Save 2 lives, you'll get a bigger share in Olam Haba. And he says, okay, I agree. And he left him alone. Okay? So it's fascinating story. Then he says over here,
How did he speak to him again?
I don't know how he did these things. With the Marsha, I don't ask all these questions. He used to keep me up at night, so I stopped asking these questions. I don't know how he did it. Some of my dreams are very vivid.
I had Facebook back then.
I have the same problem, I have vivid dreams.
Vivid dreams with such detail, and it's trying to figure it out. It's crazy. Okay. There was a story with Nakdim ben Gurion. It's a Gemara that he was one of the richest people in Israel. And the Gemara eventually says that he became poor. He lost all his money. His daughter was picking little pieces of corn amongst the dung. So the Marsha also asks, how did he lose all his money? So he says, because he stole money from a non-Jew. What's the story? It's a famous story. The Gemara says that those that were going up to Yerushalayim, there was no rain that year in Israel. There was very little rain. There was no water. This non-Jew had wells on the road. So Nakdim ben Gurion said to the guy, I'll buy all your wells. Buy all my wells, $1 million. He says, okay, but I'll tell you what. I'll buy the wells, and if before the year's over, Hashem makes it rain, and all your wells get all the water back in it, I owe you nothing. But if the water is gone because we use it, Hashem does not replace it, I owe you $1 million. No problem. Comes the last day of the year, it hasn't rained at all. So this rich guy says, okay, I just made him a cool $1 million. Nakdim ben Gurion owes $1 million. Nakdim ben Gurion goes into the Beis Medrash and starts davening to Hashem, I need rain. All of a sudden the clouds come and it's pouring rain and all the wells get filled up. So Nakdim ben Gurion says to this guy, I don't owe you any money. He says, sorry, it's too late, it's after sunset. You have to pay me back before sunset today. It's too late. It's already the next year, it's already New Year's. You owe me my money. So he goes back into the Beis Medrash and Hashem scatters the clouds and moves the sun back in the sky, and now it's 5 o'clock in the afternoon, the sun is still shining. So Nakdim ben Gurion did not pay the $1 million through a miracle that Hashem did for him. And the Marsha says, even though Hashem did the miracle for him, but did he owe the non-Jew the $1 million? Yes. And that's why he lost all his money. He says you have to be so careful not to take money that doesn't belong to you.
Deal is a deal, huh?
A deal's a deal. That's Donald Trump's motto. A deal's a deal. I'm not sure if he has the art of the deal. He says he does. I don't know. We'll find out with China and Iran and everything else, but I don't know.
You got de Blasio running now.
Yeah. one of the 25 people running. Okay, have a good night, everybody. I knew we were gonna finish
Oh, good
early
night.
because it was a small crowd. Take care. Have a good night.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Stay cool. Next week, it's